They told the crowd the human would not last 10 seconds. I decided to make it to 11 just to ruin their betting charts. By the time my nose broke and the announcer finished calling me fragile, I had already made one quiet promise. If I was going to die in an alien no-tools arena, I would at least make their god of rules choke on his own words. The tunnel behind the gate shook with noise. Alien throats shrieked and growled, folding into a single chant that pushed at my chest. No tools. No tech. Only truth. Above the dome, holograms flashed the slogan in a dozen languages like warning labels on a bad idea. Somewhere past that glare sat Vraxthul, arena master, inventor of this faith in bare hands and broken bones, the one who had signed off on importing a human as a joke species. I spat blood on the floor and felt the shock collar buzzing against my neck. A purple-skinned guard watched me with slow amusement. Trembling, human, he said through his translator. First and last time in the dome. Odds are 99.8% against you. That is almost comforting, I answered. Do I get a refund if I stay conscious too long? He frowned, not getting the joke. You will scream, then you will stop. Crowd will be happy. Another figure joined us, thin and gray, more clerk than warrior. Tiny spectacles gripped his nose ridge, 6 fingers wrapped around a tablet. Prisoner designation Jack Mercer, human, he recited. I am required to read you the rules of engagement. You are late, I said. I already signed my life away. He scrolled on. No external tools, weapons, armor, exosuits, implants, drones, or hidden devices. Only natural biology. Violations will lead to disintegration and forfeiture of wagers. Disintegration sat heavy in my head. Question, I said. What counts as a tool? Any object designed or used to extend the capacity of the user beyond baseline biological function, he replied. Teeth, I said. Fists. Knees. Very dangerous objects. Biological components attached at birth or grown as part of the organism are exempt, he said, irritated. What about rocks? He hesitated. Rocks are environmental. They may be interacted with incidentally. The Codex discourages weaponization of debris but does not explicitly forbid it. Discourages, not forbids, I repeated. The guard snorted. Codex is perfect. No one cheats the dome and lives. The clerk's tablet flickered to a diagram of the arena. Before he turned it away, I caught a glimpse. Circular pit, shifting plates, hazard zones. And on the far side, one shape that made my pulse jump. A massive double-bladed form sunk into a carved block of stone, labeled a neat script. Decorative only. Heritage relic. Do not remove. I nodded at the image. That fixture, I said. The axe-looking thing. Arena fixtures are not your concern, he snapped. Is it registered as a tool? No. It is registered as cultural monument. Unauthorized removal carries a fine. A fine, I echoed. Not instant death. You will not live long enough to pay, the guard muttered. The clerk stepped back. The arena master will now address the audience, he said. Please attempt to look courageous. The tunnel lights dimmed. A cone of white locked onto me, throwing my shadow long on the wall. My heart hammered against the collar. Then Vraxthul's voice rolled through the dome, polished until it sounded like a god selling faith. Behold, warriors of the spiral, he boomed. Those who rely on tools are weak. Those who rely on flesh are truth. And to show you the folly of the tool worshippers, we present a species who cannot abandon tools even in their stories. A human. The crowd answered with a roar that felt physical. My name appeared in hanging letters across the dome. Jack Mercer. Baseline human. Tool dependent. 0 enhancements. No exosuits. No guns. No blades. No devices. No tricks, Vraxthul proclaimed. Only skin, bone, and courage. Let this be the day the tool monkeys learn what real strength is. I squinted toward the bright smear of his private box, seeing only a dark outline framed in gold light. For someone who praised the purity of flesh, he leaned hard on speakers, projectors, and force fields thick enough to stop a meteor. Somewhere under the noise, the memory of why I had agreed to this flickered, something about treaties and Earth and not letting our species be the galaxy's punchline. It felt far away now. The gate in front of me clanged. Locks disengaged and the slab of metal began to rise. Light and sound crashed into the tunnel, hot and blinding. I stepped forward because every direction except forward belonged to someone else with a weapon. The arena opened around me, a wide bowl of pale stone broken into moving platforms and ramps. Above, fake stars glittered. Around, tens of thousands of alien faces leaned over railings, eyes and jaws stacked in rings. Floating cameras drifted like metal insects, lenses locking onto the lone human in the sand. I scanned the far side of the arena. It did not take long to find what I was looking for. On a raised platform, half buried in carved stone, stood the battle axe. Double-headed, its haft sunk deep into a plinth. Arena light ran along its edges in a way that said real metal, real weight. Above it, in neat translated text, hung the inscription I had already memorized. Historic Monument. Do not remove. Between me and that monument waited my opponent. He was 3 meters of scaled muscle, bone spikes rising from his shoulders, tail sweeping the sand. The crowd chanted his name in a grinding rhythm that the translator rendered as Grask. He thumped his chest, then his forehead, then pointed one claw at me in lazy promise. No tools now, little mammal, the translator boomed. Just you and me and the floor you will stain. Fear climbed my spine. I pushed it down and rolled my shoulders. I let my eyes pass over Grask and slide briefly to the axe buried in stone, the one thing in this arena the Codex refused to call a weapon. I could almost feel Vrack's thumb leaning forward, certain the doctrine and the numbers were on his side. I took a slow breath, tasting dust and copper, and smiled at the monster blocking my path. You are right, I said. No tools. Then I let my gaze flick to the ancient axe and murmured, just loud enough for the nearest camera to catch, you really should have proofread your own rules. The alien roar still pulsed in my ears long after the first fight ended, echoing through the metallic corridors like a giant creature breathing behind me. My knuckles stung, my ribs buzzed, and every step felt like someone had replaced my bones with bruises. But I was alive, which according to the betting statistics scrolling across every hologram wall, was a mathematical miracle bordering on heresy. The guards walking beside me kept glancing as if my continued breathing offended them. One of them, a moss-colored brute with horns, muttered in his own guttural tongue before the translator offered the sanitized version. Human survived. Error. Check parameters. I grinned through the ache in my jaw. Sorry to ruin your data. Maybe reboot me. They did not find the joke comforting. When we reached the holding sector, the doors hissed open to reveal rows of cages shaped more for beasts than sentient competitors. Inside these grim compartments were fighters from half the known species, each built with their own nightmarish adaptations. Most of them had watched my match on the screens bolted to the ceiling and now stared with sharpened fascination. Some sneered, some growled, some pressed closer to the bars. I caught a 6-armed insectoid leaning forward, mandibles clacking rhythmically. The rhythm meant curiosity rather than hunger, which was mildly reassuring. You lifted the monument, human, he said through a raspy translator. That was unexpected. I shrugged, wincing at the pull in my shoulder. I get that reaction a lot. The insectoid's mandibles twitched like a smile. You bent the rules without breaking them. Not many do that and remain in one piece. Before I could answer, a thin figure with pale gray skin and trembling fingers rushed between the cages. His eyes were too large for his narrow head, and a cluster of data pads hovered behind him, flickering with numbers and betting charts. He nervously tapped his knuckles together, as if playing an invisible instrument. Human, he whispered, though the whisper carried oddly well. My designation is Relly. Statistical Specialist. I watched your match. Your survival skewed over 1,000 prediction models. I blinked. Always happy to cause problems. Relly's pupils dilated, maybe excitement, maybe stress. Do you understand what you did? The arena's integrity system is reporting contradictions. The Codex did not anticipate a human lifting a 47-unit monument. I rubbed my shoulder again. Neither did my shoulder. A guard shoved Relly aside and waved me toward an empty cell. I stepped inside, feeling the metal floor vibrate faintly with the pounding of the crowd in the main dome. The bars closed with a heavy, final click. Through the corridor, I could see the other fighters continuing to watch me with a mix of new calculation and old contempt. Kethrix, the insectoid with 6 arms, remained the only one who looked almost amused. He approached the bars, antennae twitching. You know what comes next, human. The arena master will not tolerate being embarrassed. They will rewrite rules, restructure terrain, maybe even throw champions who trained for decades. Your victory created hunger in the crowd but rage in the high seats. I sank down onto the bench built into the wall, feeling the cold metal seep through the thin fabric of the arena-issued clothes. I would believe you, I said, but rage seems to be their resting emotion here. Kethrix tilted his head. Do not mistake their pride for blindness. They saw what you did. And they will crush you in the next round. I exhaled slowly. Every breath seemed to carry the weight of a decision I had made months ago. Earth's council had not forced me to volunteer. They had simply explained the stakes. Humans were the last species attempting to join the Spiral Treaty, a fragile alliance of civilizations. Membership was determined not just by diplomacy but by perceived survival instinct, biological capability, and combat viability. The galactic standards somehow defined those traits through this absurd blood sport. Other species had centuries of fighting tradition, genetically engineered bodies, natural weapons. Humans had tools. It was our advantage, our entire history. But the arena forbade all tools. And without tools, they assumed we were weak. If I lost too quickly, politicians would use it as justification to ban Earth from the treaty, leaving us vulnerable to predatory empires with no reason to respect us. If I won by breaking the rules, we would be disqualified as dishonorable. If I played it straight, I would die. So I had chosen the fourth option, the one no one expected. Find the cracks in their perfect system and use them. Even if it killed me. My sister's message played again in my memory, the one she had recorded before I boarded the transport. Jack, if this stupid arena is the only thing keeping Earth safe, then please do what you always do. Find the loophole. She had tried to make it sound like a joke, but her voice trembled. I had promised her I would come back. But even then, I had not believed it. The bars clicked again, and the gray-faced scribe from earlier appeared with 2 new guards flanking him. He scowled as though my presence personally offended his religion. Human, he said stiffly, your next match will proceed shortly. The arena master has issued adjustments to prevent misuse of fixtures. You are forbidden from removing anything classified as structural or ceremonial. I tilted my head. So you updated the codex. I expected this. He straightened his collar. Fixtures may not be relocated from their original positions. Any attempt to uproot, dislodge, or weaponize them will result in immediate disintegration. I rubbed my chin thoughtfully. And what about environmental hazards? He stiffened further. Environmental anomalies are part of the arena's dynamic terrain and cannot be fully controlled. They are not classified as weapons. I nodded slowly. Interesting. That means if something dangerous interacts with me, that's fine, right? He frowned. The Codex states environmental events are incidental. Their effects are not considered violations unless intentionally triggered. I smiled slightly. Define intentionally. The scribe made a frustrated sound and stormed off with the guards. Kethrix's mandibles clicked again. You provoke them on purpose. That is brave or foolish. I leaned forward. I need them off balance. The more rules they try to patch, the more contradictions they create. Kethrix tapped the cell bars with one pointed finger. Be careful, human. The arena master is old. He does not fear contradiction. He fears humiliation. And you embarrassed him before billions. The lights dimmed for a moment, replaced by a thunderous vibration as the arena platform shifted above us. The next round of matches was being prepared. Screens flickered with odds and names, and beside mine, new numbers spun wildly. The crowd had gone from laughing to betting. And not all of them were betting against me. Relly reappeared briefly, eyes wide with something like awe. I ran numbers again. Humans were underestimated by 28% across all categories. If you survive 2 more matches, human evaluations will have to be recalibrated. My people will not like that. They are comfortable with their charts. I exhaled, stretching my bruised fingers. Tell your charts to brace themselves. Relly lowered his voice. The arena master has chosen a special opponent for you. The walk back into the arena tunnel felt longer this time, as if the walls themselves had stretched to give my nerves more room to panic. The crowd above thundered with a fever that curled down into the metal beneath my feet. The roar carried something different today, not just hunger for blood but the sharp crackle of curiosity. The human who lifted the monument. The anomaly. The glitch. My name flashed in different scripts across the hologram panels as I moved through the dim corridor, each translation carrying its own mix of disbelief and amusement. I flexed my aching fingers and let the vibrations settle through my bones. The pain reminded me I was still alive, still undesired in this arena but no longer dismissed. Ahead, the heavy doors leading to the prep platform slid open, revealing a wide chamber filled with harsh lights and humming machinery. The air buzzed with static. Maintenance drones zipped overhead, adjusting gravity plates and tightening seals on the moving platforms of the death maze they called a fair battleground. 2 guards escorted me inside, though they kept a wary distance as if I might suddenly uproot another piece of architecture. Their caution made me smile. I had become a superstition overnight. At the far end of the chamber, Grass's crushed body had already been removed, leaving behind only a smear of drying blood. That spot of sand still held a faint shimmer of energy from the system's attempt to classify my actions. The arena's algorithms had not liked the contradiction of a human turning a heritage fixture into a weapon. That glitch would spread now, I knew. Systems built on the assumption of perfection hated cracks. Once one appeared, everything they controlled trembled. The announcer's voice boomed from hidden speakers. Combatant Jack Mercer, enter preparation zone. Opponent inbound. I exhaled slowly, rolling the tension from my shoulders. The chamber lights shifted to a colder blue as sliding panels opened to reveal holographic displays of my next opponent. A beast of twisted biology emerged in flickering projection, half plant and half flesh, dripping sap like blood. Regenerative strain Class 9. Vines coiled along its limbs, glowing with bioluminescent veins. Its arms ended in hooked claws that looked capable of rending steel. The translator chimed dryly. This entity is not considered a tool. It is a natural organism bred for combat. The system classification made my teeth clench. Natural organism was a ridiculous excuse. That thing had clearly been engineered by scientists with too much time and no moral oversight. But rules did not care about truth. They cared about labels. And the arena master controlled the labels. A faint chittering sound drew my attention to the upper levels of the platform. Kethrix crouched on a beam, his 6 arms wrapped around metal support structures with casual ease. His compound eyes glinted as he studied the hologram. This is assassination by doctrine, he rasped softly. They want you to die inside the rules so the rules remain unbroken. I cracked my neck and looked up. Tell me something useful. Not something depressing. He tapped his mandibles together. It regenerates if you wound it lightly. You must damage it faster than it rebuilds. But it fears fire and sudden atmospheric changes. It is not accustomed to unstable ground. Unstable ground. My gaze shifted to the machinery humming along the chamber floor. The gravity plates. Each arena was different, but the plates moved beneath the sand like invisible tides, shifting weight distribution to keep combat unpredictable. If I could control my movement around them, or better yet lure the monster over one at the wrong moment, I might stand a chance. But fire. Where in this arena would I find fire? Just then, Relly appeared again, clutching his datapads like fragile children. He approached with nervous urgency, glancing around to make sure no one saw him talking to me. He whispered, Human, listen carefully. The arena master authorized new hazards for this match. Environmental, not classified as weapons. Plasma vents, thermal eruptions, electromagnetic nodes. You can use them if they activate naturally. I smirked faintly. Naturally is doing a lot of work there. Relly's pupils widened. If you survive, prediction algorithms must be rewritten across 3 sectors. The outcome affects treaty probability. My people are fixated on probabilities. The guards barked at him, and Relly scurried away like a frightened animal. I stepped forward, hands loose at my sides. My ribs ached, my head buzzed, and the memory of the axe weighed on me like a shadow. The axe was still there. I had seen it on the hologram. The heritage monument they swore I could never touch again. This time, they had surrounded it with glowing red lines indicating restricted zone. Touch it and die instantly. Fine. There were other ways to bend rules without breaking them. The gates ahead rumbled. A rectangle of blinding light formed as the entrance to the arena rose. Sand and heat rushed inward, carrying the electric scent of anticipation. I stepped through, and the noise hit me so hard it felt like someone slapped my soul. Tens of thousands cheered, hissed, or clicked in their own languages. My image appeared across the hovering screens, replaying the moment I had freed the axe. That replay had become a holy moment of heresy. Across the arena, the new monster emerged from its own tunnel. A wet thud echoed as it planted its mass onto the sand. Its vines writhed around its torso like hungry serpents. It tilted its head at me, empty of expression, empty of reason. Only instinct. Only violence. The crowd chanted its name in overlapping rhythms that crashed like waves. I scanned the arena quickly. The platforms had shifted into a chaotic maze, rising and dropping at sharp angles. Thermal vents glowed beneath certain tiles, ready to erupt. Lightning obelisks stood like black spires, crackling with restrained energy. Gravity distortions shimmered faintly where invisible wells had been planted. And there, on the far side, still monumental and untouchable, stood the battle axe in its plinth, encircled by lethal red sensors. The monster lunged without warning, closing the distance with terrifying speed. I rolled to the side, sand burning against my skin as its claws tore through the ground where I had stood. The impact shook the platform and sent a ripple through the gravity plates. The beast snarled, vines whipping toward me like spears. I ducked low, sliding beneath one strike and sprinting toward a flickering gravity node. If I could lure it here, if I could get it off balance. The monster followed, heavy and reckless. Just as it stepped into the shimmering zone, the gravity reversed, slamming it upward into a metal arch. The crowd erupted at the sight of its tangled limbs. But before I could attack, its vines latched onto the arch, pulling its body down in a graceful, unnatural movement. Regeneration pulsed through its skin, sealing wounds instantly. I retreated toward a cluster of thermal vents. The heat rising from them seared my knees even through the sand. The beast charged again, and I dodged left, sliding down a sloped platform as it crashed onto a vent. A burst of molten air. The roar of the crowd still throbbed in the back of my skull as the lift descended from the arena floor, carrying me down into the underbelly where fighters were sorted, patched, or scraped off the walls. My entire body hummed with aftershocks of adrenaline. My hands trembled, not from fear anymore, but from the electric memory of manipulating an entire battlefield around a creature built to tear me apart. The sand was still stuck to my skin in gritty patches. Burn marks lined my arms where one thermal vent had erupted too close. My shirt was half melted in a pattern that suggested I survived by accident more than strategy, but the truth was the opposite. I had survived because their rules were built on pride, not logic. And pride always left cracks. The lift doors opened and the first thing I saw was chaos disguised as order. Arena technicians buzzed back and forth like irritated insects, their wings vibrating with stress. Holographic screens flickered with error messages. Betting charts spiked wildly, spiraling into shapes that looked like heart attacks. Guards argued with clerks. Clerks argued with priests. Priests argued with each other about whether my continued existence constituted a cosmic omen. The only thing uniting them was the shared expression of disbelief. A pair of guards escorted me down a corridor, but even they seemed hesitant, as if I were a bomb that might detonate if handled too firmly. One muttered something in a deep rumble before the translator offered, in a strained tone, human survival probability recalibrated. Please refrain from destabilizing reality. I wiped sweat and ash from my forehead. I will do my best. No promises. We reached a chamber guarded by towering armored sentries. They stepped aside to reveal a circular hall lit by floating red globes. Inside stood Vraxthul. For the first time, I saw him without the haze of distance or the filter of spectacle. He was tall, skeletal yet powerful, with a curved skull and eyes that gleamed like molten metal. His cloak shimmered with symbols of rank and triumph, but the way he held his jaw suggested something rare for him. Annoyance. Around him hovered members of his advisory circle. The legal scribe who'd lectured me earlier looked like he was moments away from shedding his skin. A priest with bronze scales clutched sacred scrolls in shaking hands. Another figure in a dark suit flicked through financial graphs, lips pulled tight. Vraxthul did not speak at first. He let the silence bear weight, pressing into me like a hand on the chest. Then his voice rolled out, calm but edged. Human Jack Mercer. Twice now you have distorted my arena. Twice you have embarrassed my predictions. The hall trembled faintly as if responding to his displeasure. I kept my stance relaxed. Embarrassment builds character. So consider me your personal trainer. Gasps scattered across the room. The scribe nearly dropped his tablet. Vraxthul lifted a hand and everyone fell silent again. He studied me the way someone might study a peculiar stain on the floor. Your survival has destabilized our markets, our priests, and our algorithms. The gamblers who wagered against you have declared fraud. The ones who wagered for you have declared prophecy. One of the advisors groaned softly. I shrugged. Sounds like a balanced system. Vraxthul stepped closer until I could see the faint shimmering of an energy shield coating his skin. Humans are not meant to last this long without tools, he said. Your species is defined by weakness hidden behind metal. That is your nature. That is your story. I met his stare, feeling heat rise along my spine. You keep telling me what I am. I keep showing you what I am not. For a moment, the flames in his eyes flickered. A crack in the certainty. A glitch. But only a moment. His expression hardened again. You cannot be allowed to continue undermining the purity of the Codex. The crowd may love your chaos, but order must prevail. He gestured to the advisors, and the scribe shuffled forward. He cleared his throat with a sound like someone stepping on gravel. Adjustments have been made to accommodate your anomaly. New rules. New classifications. New structural safeguards. Fixtures are now sealed by quantum locks. Environmental hazards have been redistributed to prevent exploitation. Gravity plates have been randomized beyond pattern recognition. And most notably, your access to restricted zones will be monitored by penalizing shock pulses. I rubbed my jaw. Sounds like a lot of work just to stop one underprepared human. The scribe flushed purple. The Codex must hold. If it bends, it breaks. I tilted my head. If it breaks, maybe it never deserved to stand. The bronze-scaled priest hissed softly, horrified. This is blasphemy. You question the sacred foundation of combat purity. I sighed. No. I question your ability to write clear rules. Vraxthul raised a hand sharply, and the room fell dead silent again. Your next match will determine everything, he said. Whether you are a glitch or a threat. Whether humans deserve treaty consideration. Whether my arena remains a monument to strength or devolves into chaos. Before he could continue, a door slid open at the far end of the chamber and Kethrix slipped in, escorted by two guards who looked uneasy holding someone with 6 arms and serrated claws. His mandibles clicked as he studied the scene. Vraxthul scowled. You are not summoned, insected. Kethrix lowered his head. I come with information the human should hear. Vraxthul waved a dismissive hand. Speak. Kethrix looked at me with calm, unblinking eyes. The arena master has summoned a champion. A creature of legend. One not bound by typical class restrictions. One designed to end anomalies. The advisors shifted uncomfortably. Even Vrak's skull stiffened. The champion was supposed to remain a myth, a deterrent. I breathed slowly, feeling the weight of this new threat settle like armor around my ribs. What is it? Kethrix's antennae twitched. They call it the Colossus of Roots. A hybrid born from the oldest Geeing vaults. It obeyed only one rule when it was created. It must not be touched by technology. No implants, no enhancements, no tools. Only pure biological might. Vrak's skull stepped forward again. I will not allow you to twist my arena into a circus. If you win this next match, the crowd will believe you are chosen by fate. If you lose, they will believe the codex remains pure. Either way, my arena stabilizes. He leaned in. But you, Jack Mercer, will not survive. I met his gaze, steady and blunt. You thought I would not survive the first match. You thought I would not survive the second. You keep thinking. I keep living. The hall fell into a thick silence. The guards tightened their grips on their weapons. The advisors whispered nervously. Vrak's dull's voice lowered to a cold whisper. Then let your next breath be your last victory. The guards seized my arms and escorted me out into the dim corridor. As the heavy doors closed behind me, muffling the arguments erupting inside, I exhaled slowly. My body ached, my lungs burned, and my mind raced. But the fear that had followed me since the first fight was different now. It was sharper. Focused. Useful. Because I knew something the arena master refused to accept. Systems built on perfection always collapse under pressure. And I had become pressure. The tunnel leading back into the arena felt colder this time, as if the metal walls themselves knew I was walking towards something larger, older, and far more deliberate than anything I had faced before. The vibrations under my boots were slower, deeper. Not the wild sheer of an excited crowd, but the controlled rumble of machinery preparing something monstrous. Every few seconds, a distant thud, like a heartbeat made of stone, echoed through the passage. They had not just prepared another round. They had built a stage for my execution. Guards escorted me in silence. No taunts. No jokes. No reminders of my insignificance. Their stillness told me everything. The champion waiting for me was not a spectacle. It was a solution. A weapon aimed at a single target. Me. The arena master wanted order restored, and killing me was the final patch in his cracked system. As we walked, Relly appeared, darting from a side corridor like a terrified insect. His datapads flickered with warning symbols. He whispered sharply, "Human. They are changing variables without announcing them. Gravity fluxes, thermal surges, electromagnetic spikes. The arena integrity system is throwing red alerts." He looked up at me with wide, trembling eyes. If any of those changes overlap, entire sections could collapse. I paused just long enough to meet his gaze. Sounds like the arena master is scared. Relly swallowed hard. He is not scared. He is desperate. And desperate minds break rules they claim to worship. Before I could answer, 2 guards grabbed Relly and dragged him away, warning him for interfering. His voice echoed down the hall as he was pulled out of sight. Patterns do not lie. Survive and everything changes. The gate to the prep chamber opened with a slow, grinding motion, as if reluctant to reveal what lay beyond. The chamber lights were dimmer than usual, tinted red by emergency warnings whispered by the arena systems. Smoke drifted from overheated gravity generators. Thermal vents sputtered unpredictably. This place was no longer stable. The arena master's attempt to control the match had strained the machinery almost to breaking. I stepped forward, and the platform shook beneath me. A deep groan vibrated through the floor. The technicians scrambled to recalibrate gauges, their frantic movements betraying how wrong everything was. One of them muttered a phrase in his native tongue before the translator crackled. Environment unstable. Probability of cascading failure rising. Please ensure the human dies quickly. The corner of my mouth twitched. Even the arena wanted me gone. A series of hollow thumps echoed from the far side of the chamber. The lights flickered. A sealed door slid open, releasing a heavy, damp fog. Movement stirred inside that fog. Slow, rhythmic, like roots dragging across stone. A massive silhouette stepped out. Then another. Then a third limb, but not an arm. A tangle of thick, muscular vines slithered behind it, gripping the floor for balance. The colossus of roots emerged fully, towering 2 stories high. Its body was a fusion of ancient wood, hardened bark, and living flesh. Pulsing veins ran across its chest, glowing with a dim green light. Strange flowers bloomed along its arms, each one opening to reveal rows of thorn teeth. Its head resembled a skull carved from petrified timber, empty eye sockets filled with luminescent sap that watched me with unblinking hunger. Kethrix vaulted down from a metal beam overhead, landing near the edge of the chamber before guards forced him back. His mandibles clacked urgently. Human. This champion is older than the Codex itself. It was built to obey one law. No tools. It fights with nothing but its own body. It is the living embodiment of the Arena Master's doctrine. I nodded slowly, muscles tightening. And they expected to bury me so deep the crowd forgets I ever existed. The announcer's voice boomed through the chamber. Combatant Jack Mercer, prepare for final classification. Arena will open in 20 seconds. Final classification. I knew what that meant. If I died, humans were marked as combat insignificant. Easy prey. An afterthought. If I won, I would become a symbol no rule could erase. Either outcome would change the galaxy. The gate began to rise. A violent burst of light and heat slammed into the chamber. The roar of the crowd surged like an ocean beginning to drown itself. I stepped onto the platform, and the air hit me like a furnace. The arena had changed again. Gone was the chaotic maze. In its place stood a landscape of rising stone pillars, molten cracks, flickering lightning obelisks, and gravity wells distorting the air like shimmering glass. Everything throbbed with unstable energy. The Arena Master had turned the battlefield into a living storm. The Colossus stepped into the arena behind me, each footfall shaking the ground. The crowd fell strangely quiet. It was the silence that preceded belief. They believed they were witnessing the end of a mistake. The monster struck first, faster than anything that size should have been allowed to move. A root-coated limb swung like a whip. I dove aside, feeling the wind of its strike brush my face. The ground where I'd stood exploded in a shower of stone shards. The force alone would have split me in two. I landed on a slanted platform that immediately dropped under my weight, plunging me into the chaos of shifting terrain. The gravity flipped sideways, sending me tumbling toward a magma pit. Heat seared my skin. At the last second, I grabbed a jagged rock formation, letting momentum swing me to a safer ledge. The Colossus roared, the sound like an entire forest being torn apart. It leapt across platforms, crashing toward me. I scrambled upward, dodging a spray of thorn vines. One vine slashed my arm, ripping a burning gash along my skin. I clenched my teeth, pushing the pain aside. Pain meant nothing if you stopped thinking. And thinking was the only thing keeping me alive. The terrain hummed beneath me. Lightning arced between two obelisks. I slid down a slope, letting the Colossus chase me directly into the arc. At the last second, I rolled aside. The lightning slammed into the beast's shoulder, sending shockwaves through its vines. It spasmed violently, sap spraying from its wounds. But it did not fall. Instead, it tore the nearest obelisk from the ground with a roar of pure rage and hurled it at me. I sprinted, diving behind a cluster of stone pillars as the obelisk crashed and exploded into shards. The arena shook again, this time from deeper forces. A gravity well malfunctioned, pulling loose sand and debris upward in a swirling vortex. The Colossus was caught for a moment, its vines whipping in all directions as it struggled to escape. I ran toward the center of the arena, toward the one thing I swore I would not touch again. The battle axe. The monument. The forbidden symbol surrounded by deadly red energy lines. I stopped just outside the glowing perimeter. The crowd held its breath. The Arena Master leaned forward in his private box. The sensors hummed, ready to kill me instantly. But I did not reach for the axe. I reached for the plinth beneath it. The stone base. The thing anchoring the sensors. The moment my fingers closed around the axe, the arena seemed to inhale. Every sound collapsed into a single stretched breath, as if the entire Colosseum, every spectator, every camera, and even the arena systems themselves were frozen between outrage and awe. The weight of the weapon drove into my palms like a heartbeat made of iron. Its shaft was rough, ancient, and warm from stored sunlight filtered through centuries. The blades shimmered with a dull metallic glow, heavy but balanced, as if built not for ceremony but for purpose. For one impossible second, I stood beneath the dying sparks of the shattered sensor lines, holding the object they swore I must never touch again. Then the Colossus screamed. The sound crashed into me like a storm rolling out of a collapsing sky. It was rage, betrayal, and something else. Fear. The creature's glowing veins flickered violently, its spines twisting into shapes that suggested instinct, not thought. It had watched the plinth crumble under its own weight. It had seen the axe fall because of its strike. Somewhere inside its old biological code, something understood the gravity of that mistake. It rushed forward with a speed its massive size should never have allowed, vines cracking across the ground and ripping through stone. I steadied my grip, feeling the axe vibrate in my hands as if eager for conflict. My breath steadied into something calm. My ribs still ached, blood still seeped from cuts along my arm, and fear still wound itself around my bones, but none of it mattered now. The Colossus lunged. I dodged to the side, dragging the axe in a wide arc that clanged against a hardened root limb. Sparks flashed, ringing through the air in harsh metallic notes. The beast recoiled, more surprised than wounded. It attacked again, this time faster, vines whipping toward my legs, chest, throat. I ducked beneath one, angled the shaft upward, and swung the blade hard into its torso. Thick bark cracked but did not break. The recoil jolted up my arms so violently I thought my wrists might snap. I staggered back, breath short, feeling the monster's shadow loom over me like a collapsed planet. A gravity surge erupted beneath us. One of the unstable wells momentarily reversed, causing the debris around my feet to float upward in a shimmering cloud. I used the lift, pushing off the ground to rise higher than human legs alone could support. The Colossus reached up to snatch me from the air, but I twisted mid-fall and brought the axe down on one of its upper root clusters. The blade sank deeper this time, cutting into pulsing green matter that sprayed glowing sap across my arms. The beast roared, staggering back and slamming into a stone pillar that cracked under the impact. The crowd erupted in chaotic noise, not cheering, not jeering, but something else entirely, something raw and unfiltered. The arena master stood in his private box, no longer calm. His posture was rigid, his hands clutching the railing so tightly energy shimmered around his knuckles. He had designed the rules. He had shaped the arenas. He had crafted the codex. And here I was, a species he mocked, using his own system to unravel him in front of billions. I saw him order something to the officials beside him, but the arena was already spiraling out of his control. Panels flickered, platforms shook, thermal vents erupted at random as the overloaded systems struggled to compensate for all the modifications they had been forced to make to stop me. The Colossus recovered quickly, more quickly than anything should. The vines around its torso tightened, pulling bark and flesh back together with a grotesque wet sound. It roared and charged again, each stride causing the arena floor to tremble. Its fists, covered in layers of hardened root and thorn bark, slammed forward like battering rams. I spun aside, letting its momentum carry it into a lightning obelisk. The surge of white-blue energy exploded across its body, causing petals from the strange fleshy flowers on its arms to burst in scorching waves. It howled but did not fall. I retreated to higher ground, climbing a stack of stone platforms just as they began shifting upward. The Colossus followed, tearing through rock as it climbed after me. The air thinned for a moment, another system glitch, pulling oxygen in uneven streams. My lungs burned. The Colossus did not seem affected. Panic clawed at my throat, but I forced it down. Every match had brought me to the edge of something impossible, but impossibility had not won yet. The axe felt heavier now, its weight draining my arms. But weight could be used if you knew how to move with it. I watched the colossus as it climbed, seeking something beyond brute size. Every creature, no matter how strong, had a rhythm to its movement. And there it was. A slight hitch on its left side where my earlier strike had cut deeper. A place where regeneration lagged just a fraction of a second behind the rest. A weakness. The platform beneath my feet began to vibrate, warning of a gravity shift. I braced myself. When the surge hit, it shoved me downward with a violent slam. The colossus was pushed too, but the uneven pressure caused its damaged side to buckle. It lost balance. For the first time, it fell to one knee. The arena gasped in one collective breath. I lunged. I swung the axe with every ounce of force I had left, feeling something deep inside me crack, maybe a rib, maybe resolve itself. The blade struck the weakened point. It sank deeper than before, cutting into layers of bark, vines, and ancient muscle. A violent pulse of green light exploded from the wound as the creature let out a scream that tore the air open. It staggered backward, crashing into the platform's edge. The stone crumbled beneath its weight, and the colossus toppled into a pit of unstable gravity. The well's pull intensified for a moment, twisting the monster's massive limbs, hurling them in all directions as if the arena itself tried to dismantle it. Vines tore apart. Bark shattered. The creature's glowing veins dimmed faster than regeneration could restore them. When the gravity well stabilized, what remained of the champion lay broken across the pit, sap pooling in thick glowing puddles. Silence filled the arena. True, absolute silence. The kind that only arrives when an entire world realizes the impossible has happened. I stood at the edge of the pit, chest heaving, fingers still locked around the axe. Every muscle begged to fall. My vision flickered. My knees shook. But I stayed upright. The champion was dead. Not by luck. Not by rule breaking. Not by tools. By adaptation, by improvisation, by turning the very environment their doctrine worshipped into my ally. Slowly, sound returned. Not cheers at first. Murmurs. Whispers layered over whispers. Then a chant rose. One voice. Then another. Then thousands. Then tens of thousands. Axe-bearer. 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 The arena shook with it. The crowd did not chant for purity. They chanted for defiance. They chanted for change. Up in his private box, Vraxstull stared at me without expression. But behind his stillness was something unmistakable. Not rage. Not disbelief. Something colder. Something calculating. He knew now what he had lost. Control. The crowd no longer belonged to his codex. It had shifted to something new. Something dangerous. Something human. I lowered the axe, breath steadying in my chest. I had survived. I had won. And whether the arena master liked it or not, the rules of this galaxy had just changed.